Welcome, friend. It's a delay. It's okay.
Okay, I got that little setup here.
Just saying.
Little movie set.
All right, so we're inside of my house right now. I wanted to bring it on in and just make it a little bit more personal because I have my dear friend here, Amber Robinson, who I've known for, help me,
At least 20 years.
no,
Yeah.
I'm 36,
When did you graduate high school?
2001.
So it's been 20 years since I graduated high school.
I don't think I met you when I was 16, though. We've known each other for like 15 years.
15. Okay, we'll say 15.
It probably feels like 20 because I'm real high energy. So Amber is my photographer and has been my photographer. So any picture that you see with my mouth wide open, I'm out with my kids doing anything, this is the woman who has been shooting me for the last 4 years, putting up with all my antics. And I really wanted to have you on because I feel like you have an incredible story.
Oh, thank you.
Let's give them a little backstory. So Amber's sister is my best friend. So I met Erica, and then just by chance, because you guys are sisters, I ended up meeting you. And I remember when I met you, you were not a photographer yet.
No, I was a hobby photographer, but it was kind of like the side hustle.
You had a lot of side hustles though. Like you were a massage therapist.
Yeah.
You were like, what other things did you try before you like landed in?
Well, I have always had an entrepreneurial spirit. So as a kid, I was that one that was like out on the corner, like, here, buy my lemonade. And my dad was an entrepreneur. So I always had that spirit, and I tried a lot of things before something actually stuck, which is photography. I went to school, and that was like what my parents, that was the expected path to take. Go to college, you meet a nice person, you get married, you know, you have a career, and that was the path they took. So that was the path that I guess was expected to take, but it never really felt like what I was supposed to do. So had a friend convince me to go to massage therapy school. Did that, and I was like, this is fun.
I actually got a massage by Amber a few times. You were good.
Oh, thank you.
You were good. You unpacked that table, girl. I was like, anything you did, I was like, I would like to purchase your services.
And you've always been that girl. You're
I've
like standing
always
right
been
there.
that girl.
Yes.
Like my back hurts. So one of the things I wanted to really have you on to do is to share your story, but this is inside of a do it scared kind of topic line, because I feel like that phrase for me has really, I'm not going to say it changed my life, but thinking about doing things scared really did change my life. And I remember the point in time where you had a particular job. I'll let you kind of get into it, and like getting into what made you shift, like, because you're a really incredibly successful and very talented photographer. You have waiting lists, people fly you out to like shoot their weddings, and I feel like a lot of people would really be encouraged by hearing your story because you don't really know until somebody shares it.
Well, thank you for having me on. And it has been quite a journey, going from working in a corporate 9 to 5, punching a clock, doing what mom and dad expect you to do, to transitioning to a full-time entrepreneurial role. I worked for 6 years at Duke University in the job that I thought was going to be the thing for me. I thought I was going to retire from that. But I got to a point in that job where not only did I not like it at all, but I actually hated it. And I worked on the healthcare side, and I had to have a conversation with myself saying that, like, if you hate your job, someone could actually die by you hating your job. And like, that was a scary prospect for me, because with my grandmother, who was alive at that time, taking her to so many doctor's appointments, I'm like, I need these people to like love their job.
It's different when it's your family.
Yeah. And so I was like, I can't continue doing this. I went up for a promotion that I completely deserved and got passed over for that promotion. And that was like, whew, that was a slap. Because not only did I get passed over for the promotion, but then I actually had to train the person that they hired.
Insult to injury.
Right. And I was like, okay, so I'm good enough to train the person that you hired, but I wasn't good enough to actually have that job myself. And so that actually started this domino effect of events that led to me eventually leaving there. And talk about doing it scared. I mean, I was leaving amazing healthcare benefits. I was leaving the security of a 9-to-5 job, where the difference is whenever you're working for yourself, if you don't show up for work mentally and physically, you don't get paid.
And you also had a child already.
Yeah. So there was that security, like making sure that she had like what she needed. My family always has come first. So being scared to do something, like that was the apex of being scared. One day I was working from home because I did have a little bit of flexibility in that job. And the house that we were living in, my desk was facing a window, so my back was to the room. And my little one was home with me that day, and she was maybe 12 or 13 months old. She wasn't quite walking by herself, so she was in one of those little rolling walker things. And I'm pecking away at my computer, and something just in the peripheral of my eye caught my attention, and it was my little one. And she was standing there. She wasn't saying anything, but I just had this moment because I didn't realize, I didn't even know, like, how long had she been there? Had she been there for 5 minutes? Had she been there for an hour? And something about just looking at her and realizing that, like, I'm gonna miss the first time that she takes a step because I'm gonna be at work. And she would not cry whenever I left. She would cry when my parents left because they were the ones that were her primary caregivers during the day at that time. And I was just like, man, I cannot continue to do this. So literally that day I opened a calendar and I just blindly pointed to a date and I said, that's gonna be my last day.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it was just like, I thought about all of the things that I've ever done and all the things I've ever been scared of doing, and I could not think of one time where things did not turn out okay. They didn't always turn out exactly the way I wanted them to turn out.
Life.
But everything was always okay in the end. Like, I never went hungry, thank God. I never had, like any serious event come other than something good as a result of a big decision I made. And so I talked to my husband and he was like, yes, do it, which was incredibly, like, that was one of the things that took a lot of pressure off me, was having the support. My parents were like,
aren't they always like that out of love?
They are.
Parents want you to be happy, but when you start going in a path that kind of differs from what they're used to, everybody gets tight.
Yes, they do. I knew that in order for me to really feel happy and fulfilled in my life, like, I had to do it. At that time, I didn't have a clear plan on like how it was gonna work. I didn't have like any contingencies, like what ifs. I just knew I had to do it.
No safety net.
It was like you just step off and hope that the next step appears. And it did. And it kept appearing and it kept appearing and it kept appearing until finally, like, you realize that, like, you're not on this roller coaster, you're actually like paving your own path. And once you've realized that, then like that's where the confidence starts coming in. And so you're like, oh, like, okay, I did this for a month. I can do this for another month. I can do this for a whole year.
So tell us a little bit about your business now, like name of business,
Yes.
how long you've been in business.
Yeah. So my business is a photography business, like you said. I do portraits and weddings, and it's images by Amber Robinson.
So correction, she slays weddings. I've seen your wedding portraits.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Weddings are really where my heart is. I actually love capturing love. I am a romantic at heart. I have a bleeding heart. I am that girl that like watches the rom-coms and is like, oh my gosh, they got together at the end. I always want a happy ending. So shooting weddings was naturally something that I was drawn to. And I've been really, really fortunate to let that be like the primary part of my business. So I've traveled all across the world shooting weddings, and it's just something that I love.
How long have you been in business?
I've been in business for 10 years officially, but full-time for 5.
Yes, 5
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
I feel like in a lot of the other Garnish Your Growth episodes, this is a channel that's devoted to nothing but growth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think certain things show up that are unexpected obstacles. So you're thinking, how am I going to get clients?
Right.
How am I going to carve out the time? What am I going to charge? I need a website. I need business cards. What's my logo going to be?
Yeah.
Nobody really thinks, what am I going to do with my money block?
Yeah.
What am I going to do about my mindset when it comes to the money? So how did that, like,
For
where did you
me-
kind of like feel that.
I think that for me, I was struggling with like getting the client that I wanted. Money block was mostly coming from a confidence level, that I wasn't confident that what I was giving them was worth what I was charging them. Because there was people around me doing it cheaper.
The comparison game.
Right. Oh my gosh. Every single time. So because I found myself in this comparison loop, I unfollowed photographers on Instagram because comparison without context like is really dangerous. Like, how can I compare myself to someone who's been doing something twice as long as I have? But on Instagram, you don't know they've been doing it for 20 years and you've only been doing it for 10. People would get so mad at me, like, Amber, I follow you on Instagram. Why don't you follow me back? And I would say, girl, if I don't follow you, it's because I admire you. And I don't want to get stuck comparing myself with you to a point where I don't like you anymore. Because that's what it does.
Consciously, it'll start to work.
And it's not that I didn't like those people. It's like I was having a problem with myself. I didn't like myself compared to that.
So would you say working in a corporate environment where you clock in, you work that job, you go home, there's a certain set of skills that you need for whatever corporate environment you're in. As an entrepreneur, or as somebody who's like chasing your dream, I mean, you don't even have to be an entrepreneur to chase your dream. You can find a really dope, somebody who finds you now, who's a budding photographer, could find their passion and purpose kind of like in the lane of what you're doing. So I don't want to block it off and just say entrepreneur. But would you say that there's a completely different set of skills? And did doing it scared continue to show up? Or was it just like a one-time thing? Because I think that that's something that people need to hear too.
Yeah, I think that if you're expecting to be able to get over one fear and be like, oh, I'm on easy street now.
Did it? Scared.
Yeah. No. Because fear is something that always shows up. And fear, one of the things that I learned is that fear, you have a choice. You can take fear in a good way or a bad way. Because fear is, if you think of in a primal way, we teach our kids, like, don't touch a hot stove. We want them to be afraid of getting burned, right? Because it protects them. So fear can protect us, but fear can also like hold us back.
It can stifle the hell out of your growth.
It can suffocate you and it will kill your dreams. So whenever something scares me now, I almost look at it as a challenge. And I'm like, oh, I'm scared of this. It must be meant to be.
Yeah. You go towards the fear now.
I walk towards the fire. And sometimes, like, my parents, my sister, they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, there is something on the other side of that I have to see. I have to be part of. I have to touch it. I have to hold it. I want it to be mine. And for me, fear now is a catalyst for growth.
Do you still offer your mastermind training?
Yes. So I have a mentoring program where I mentor women entrepreneurs on really just how to use fear and imperfections as a catapult in their business so that it's not holding them back. Because I think a lot of us use this excuse that like, well, I don't have this, or I'm not that. I didn't grow up this way. I don't have this amount of money. So we use these as excuses to not do what our heart is telling us to do. We want to do it, but then we'll say, oh, well, I don't live in an area that would support that. Like, I'm sure at one point in your career you said, like, people are not going to get extensions in Raleigh, North Carolina.
It was told to me several times.
Yeah. And if we believe that, then it will keep us in this little place in a corner where we're only wanting and not doing. But the one thing that I tell everybody, and I'll close on this, is that growth is not running in a field full of wildflowers with puppies and kittens and like beautiful anthropology dresses with a score playing in the background.
Yes, anthro. And their playlist.
Fear leads to growth. Overcoming fear leads to growth. And doing it scared is really like the only way that I can do things now. If it doesn't scare me, if the dream is not bigger than my fear, man, like I want it to scare the shit out of me.
Yeah.
So because I know that like if I can get past the fear, then like what is on the other side of that is going to like just blow my socks off.
I love your entire fucking story. And I've learned I didn't know some of those things about you, and I've known you for like 15 years.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that,
I love
man.
you so much.
I love you for coming in and giving us some of your time. Candice Motley.
I'm Amber Robinson.
And if you're scared to do it,
Do it fucking scared.